Hello, you guys. Welcome back to the Sweat Simple podcast. I am so excited to be here with you guys today. We have a great episode. And just so you guys know, it is just me here talking to my computer. I would love to know if there are other humans out there listening. So if you could please pause this episode, give me a 5-star rating. It would truly mean the world to me. Ratings and reviews are so important in the podcasting world. It really helps my show to grow, and growing this podcast is a big goal of mine this year because I really want to be able to expand this community and help as many people as I possibly can. So if you are enjoying what you've been hearing, if this podcast has helped you in any way, I always so appreciate it when you rate, review, and subscribe. And then also let me know what content is vibing with you so I can make more of that content. Speaking of, this episode is going to be pretty different from what I typically record. As we know, there's a lot of BS in the fitness industry. So with my podcast and my coaching, I really try to provide you guys with the facts. I give you guys information that is backed in science, that's rooted in psychology, and I always want to give you some actionable tips that you can take with you and implement immediately. Like, that is the goal. I want you guys feeling like at the end of these podcast episodes, you have immediate next steps that you can take to start to make an impact on your life. But sometimes we don't only need the information and action items. And this is actually a big part of my coaching too. Sometimes we need a little bit of hype. We need some inspiration. We need some motivation. And that's what this episode is going to be. I really felt called to make this episode because it's a trend that I see over and over. I tend to work with high-performing women. I would consider myself a high-performing woman. I have a lot of goals. I'm very self-motivated. I'm extremely driven. I'm, really motivated. And because of that, a lot of the people that I work with, a lot of my clients, a lot of you guys in my audience, you tend to be the same way. You hold yourself to a really high standard. You want these things for yourself. You are very motivated, you're very disciplined, and we typically are putting ourselves last. Whether it's your family, your partner, your friends, or your job, your health seems to come last after all of that. You will run yourself to the ground to the point of burnout, and you will still be prioritizing everyone else's needs over your own. And what's pretty funny is a lot of times I think we don't even realize we're doing this because it can be kind of sneaky. But it's something I hear a lot in my intake forms, or it's something I even hear that I need to work with my clients on this because all of a sudden they're feeling so stressed. They're feeling so low energy. They're feeling like they don't even have the capability to do any sort of health or fitness habit because they have let these other areas of their life become such a priority. And of course, sometimes these things have to be, especially if you're a mom or a friend or whatever it might be. Like, sometimes you can't always be your number one priority. But what I'm asking is that you are still at least some sort of priority and you're not putting yourself dead last. And like I said, this can be kind of sneaky, especially if it's something like our job that we don't even fully realize how much we're prioritizing it over our own health. And this was me like 4 to 5 years ago. Like I just said, I think it's kind of like when you're a parent, it's a bit easier to see when you're prioritizing everyone else over you. It's a bit more concrete. You can see that you're constantly putting your kids' needs in front of you, or maybe even if you don't have kids, but you have a partner, you can see that you're always letting your partner come first over you. It kind of can be harder to see when it's something like your job. So I just kind of assumed that this wasn't an issue for me because I wasn't a parent. I was living alone. I didn't have anyone else to worry about but myself. So like, why I should be my number one priority, right? But now that I'm out of it, now that I'm out of that phase, I'm able to see very clearly that I was prioritizing my job over everything else, including myself. I hadn't yet taken Sweat Simple full time. I was not coaching full time. I was in a pretty demanding corporate job. I had clients all over the world, which meant that my day started immediately. I woke up, I checked my email, which then immediately made me feel like I was going into overdrive. I rushed through my workout because I knew what was sitting in my inbox for me, and I felt this little pocket of stress because I knew all the work that was waiting for me as soon as I got to the office. So I felt like I needed to get through my workout as quickly as possible. And then I worked a full 8-hour day, but let's be honest, it was almost always more than 8 hours a day. I ate all my meals at my desk. I would step away sometimes for a walk at like 4 p.m. and then I would immediately get back to work. I was available for everyone all of the time. I said yes to every single meeting. I responded to Slacks and emails as soon as they popped up. I had a hard time getting my individual work done because I felt like I was at the beck and call of everyone else. And during this time, I even hated when I had to like go to the doctor for an annual physical because it meant that I was missing valuable work time. I would get so stressed if I had to come in late because I had to go to the dentist. Or I remember, I think I had to get like a root canal done at one point, and it was a multiple appointments in the span of 2 weeks. And I was so stressed because I felt like I didn't have enough time to take care of my health, which looking back feels insane. But at the time, I didn't even want to make these doctor's appointments that were literally for my health. Not to mention, I was also traveling often for work, even though I really did not enjoy it. And on the weekends, I was traveling for weddings and bachelorettes and other like random personal travel. Probably unsurprising if you just listen to that whole spiel was that I was exhausted all the time. I was extremely tired. I was worn down. I was burnt out. And maybe you can relate to this. Maybe you can relate to this feeling of almost needing a vacation in order to take a break. Almost hoping that maybe you get sick because then you can finally have an opportunity to breathe. Hoping that you have some sort of chance to slow down, but you're not going to give yourself the permission to do so. It has to be from an external source, like a vacation or an illness. That is crazy, but I was right there with you. And here's the thing. I thought I was really healthy during that time. I strength trained. Like I said, I would get up every morning and work out. I ate balanced meals. I was even actually at one point studying to become a personal trainer, and I was teaching group fitness. Like on the surface, I was healthy. Like I said, I worked out. I ate nutrient-dense foods. But at the same time, my workouts were not effective because I was just trying to check them off my to-do list and then immediately get to work. My sleep was terrible. I was almost definitely not getting 8 hours of sleep a night. My stress levels were through the roof. As a result of that and my caffeine intake, my blood pressure was high. I was probably drinking 3 to 4 nights a week because that was the only time I felt like I could, fully allow myself to relax maybe. I was just on the verge of burnout all the time. And it was all because I wasn't actually prioritizing myself. You might seem like you're prioritizing yourself because you do these little things. You do the workout, you eat the nutrient-dense meals, you live alone. So of course you're prioritizing yourself. But if what I just described sounded familiar, you're not actually prioritizing yourself. You're prioritizing your job. And if you can relate to this, I have one thing to tell you that I wish someone had been there to tell me 4 to 5 years ago. And it is that you have to start taking care of yourself, period. You have to start allowing yourself to come first. This stress to the max state that you're in, it's not sustainable long term. You will inevitably crash. And before that crash, you'll continue to have low energy. You'll continue to have really high increased cravings and snacks. And if it's a goal of yours, you'll likely continue to struggle with fat loss and maintaining it long term. Point blank, a calorie deficit, which is required in order to lose fat, is additional stress on your body. So is strength training, by the way. So is any sort of exercise, by the way. And if you're already operating at this high level of stress, the deficit is going to feel really, really tough and unmanageable, especially if on top of it, you're not sleeping well and you're really stressed to the max and you're someone who tends to deal with your stress with alcohol or with food. So I know because I have been there. I have been this girl. I have been the person who feels like they are doing the healthy things, but at the same time, you are so low energy. You feel like you are taking care of yourself, but you don't actually feel good. You're like, why am I working this hard for my health and fitness if I don't actually have like the energy to show for it? And I don't actually feel like I'm making the progress towards my goal that I actually want to. And it's because you're not really prioritizing your health. And I know it might feel like you can't possibly be the priority. Your job, all this extra stuff has to come first. But here's the thing. When you are in this low energy, high stress state, you are not showing up for the best version of yourself for anyone. Not for your kids, not for your partner, not for your friends, and certainly not for your job. You have to start taking care of yourself. And I'm a realistic coach. I am not one of those 22-year-old influencers who thinks that we all have the quote-unquote same 24 hours in a day and we can all do these like really extensive morning routines. I know that is not the case. And I am not saying that in order to prioritize yourself, that means abandoning your kids to do a multiple hour long morning routine or to start ignoring every single request at work to like protect your peace. I'm not saying that. I understand that that's not realistic. And again, I've been in that place where it feels like work and everyone else in your life is like the number one priority, and it can be really hard and scary to start to allow yourself to come first sometimes. But I bet if you're honest with yourself right now, there are things that you could be prioritizing for yourself. It doesn't have to be everything, but I bet you there are boundaries you could be setting. Maybe there's a certain time that you really don't need to respond to emails at. There could be things that you do to minimize some of this stress you're feeling, but it feels scary to do them. And again, as someone who has been there, I promise the world is not going to collapse if you start taking care of yourself. It's okay to say no to social obligations that you're not excited about. It's okay to turn off work notifications outside of working hours. It's okay to take 30 minutes away from your kids if you have childcare for a workout. This is your permission if you need it. But I promise you have to start taking care of yourself and you have to allow yourself to be a priority. If you do that, you are going to start showing up as the best version of yourself. Because imagine if you actually felt like you had sustained energy throughout the day. Imagine if when you went to play with your kids after work or just in general, you felt excited to do so instead of like you were about to fall asleep. What if you felt excited about those work emails because you actually allowed yourself to take time off? Just imagine if you weren't living in this constant state of stress and burnout, because that is not actually living. That is surviving. And I want so much more than just surviving from you. I don't want you just barely scraping by. I want you feeling so good. And in order to do that, you have to take care of yourself. You have to allow yourself to come first a little bit of the time. You have to allow yourself to take time to eat the lunch. You have to allow yourself to take the time to go on a walk. You have to allow yourself to put on Do Not Disturb while you're in your workout. You have to give yourself permission to do the things that are going to help you feel and show up as the best version of you, because that is truly how you get the most out of life. It's not by just barely making it through. It is by really taking care of yourself, allowing yourself to let your health and fitness become a priority. And it doesn't have to be like the sole focus of your life. That's not the point of this. It's just that health and fitness isn't coming absolute last place. It's not that it's the thing that you're constantly pushing off, saying, well, I don't have time for that. Because you need to make the time. If you want to have good energy, if you want to feel good, if you want to be the best, most successful version of you, you have to find the time for this health and fitness, because you do have the time. And if you start making the time, I promise you, because I have seen it with so many of my coaching clients, every other area of your life is going to start to feel a heck of a lot easier. So if you allow this portion of your life to come first, you're going to start to see a ton of success in all of these areas. Now, if you like the format of this episode, I would really love to hear from you. Like I said, this was a little bit of motivation. It was a little bit of inspiration. It was different than just like the actionable tips that I typically give. So please shoot me a DM so I can keep making more of these episodes if it was helpful. If you know someone who would benefit by hearing it, maybe that's super type A stress girly like I know I tend to be, send this episode to them. Let them know that you care about them, you're thinking about them, you want them to start taking care of themselves. In general, though, thank you guys so much for listening. I so appreciate that you guys are here every single week tuning in, and let's keep building this community.